in Soweto. Now, after 3 days since the catastrophic Joburg CBD fire that claimed 76 lives, some families are yet to identify loved ones after over 60 were burnt beyond recognition. Last night, authorities had to convince some to go to shelters. Many have been sleeping on the street, hoping to salvage what's left of their belongings. Let's get an update now from our reporter Pule Letshwiti-Jones, who joins us live from Soweto. He's in Dipkloof, outside that forensic mortuary or centre that became known to us last night, where we heard from the health minister, Pule, giving an update on the numbers of bodies that still need to be identified, the difficulty of doing so, especially taking into consideration the complications that come with dealing with a large number of those people being foreign nationals. What is the latest from where you stand right now?
Well, definitely. I've actually witnessed some family members coming here as well to come and identify some of the deceased, those, of course, who died as a result of that tragic fire incident in Johannesburg as well. What I can also tell you is that I've spoken to one family from Malawi, and they're saying that they've been trying to ensure that they follow correct procedures, and they will have to bury in South Africa because they do not have the resources or money to bury or rather transport the corpse or body corpse to Malawi as well. As far as we also understand, we do know that the government said there was just over 60 bodies that were burnt beyond recognition, and therefore the state would have to play a role in terms of burying them. But also there are other organizations that have been assisting with families who do not have the money to bury their loved ones. I'm now joined by one of them, of course, which is Rais Ibrahim from Chishchi Burial Service. Rais, thank you very much for speaking to me this morning. Just tell us what you have doing as an organization so far as a burial service to help the affected families.
Okay, so as an organization, what we've done is we've come together to get with the city of Johannesburg to try and assist these families with dignified burials for the deceased. That's according to Muslim rights as well. So currently what we are doing here this morning is we are waiting for the family members of the deceased to arrive. We've arranged for transport for the relatives to go to the embassy and get the necessary paperwork done.
And how many families are you assisting so far?
Currently we are not sure of an exact number. That is because there are still bodies that need to be identified as well. But it would be hard for me to give you an exact number on the amount of families. Whoever needs assistance and comes to us or contacts us, we are ready to assist them.
I don't know if you're able to speak about this, but have you seen, is the demand high from the families? I know you can't, divulge into the numbers, but is there a high demand?
I wouldn't be able to speak on that. Look, I've only been here since this morning. There are other guys from our team that have been here since yesterday. They would be able to advise you on that.
Okay, so you're burying, of course, according to Muslim rights as well.
Yeah.
What will be the procedure from here onwards? If a family says, we have identified our loved one, could you please assist us?
Okay, so once they have identified their deceased, they will have to go to the embassy, get the necessary paperwork done. Once the necessary paperwork is done, they would then have to come back here to the mortuary, and then we will begin the process of releasing the bodies. Once that is done and we are allowed to collect the bodies, we will then go to our facility where we would then bathe the bodies and then shroud them. From there on, we would have the funeral prayer and then the burial afterwards.
Okay, have you had any request maybe from some of the families from Malawi to say, can you help us maybe transport the body to Malawi?
Again, I haven't been in much contact with the families, but it's if there is a request, we will try and assist in that manner.
Okay. And how can people get hold of you, Rais?
Okay, so they can contact our office. Can I give her?
Yeah, sure.
The contact number is 011-854-3166. They would then be put into the burial division, and they just have to give the necessary information, and we will then contact them and try and assist.
And you're saying this is at no cost?
Yes, this is at no cost.
All right, thank you very much, Rais Ibrahim there. Of course, from Sabi Cheshchi Burial Service, as you can see on screen, Masal, that's one of the quantums there, of course, that they've brought here just to assist the affected families. I did try to get in touch with some of the families to actually speak to us on record, but, you know, they're going through a really tough a moment at this particular time, and they've asked for a bit of space before they can comment or speak to us. But we did see, of course, other family members coming in as well. Some are friends who were saying they've been trying to contact the family members to come to the morgue to try and identify if they have lost any of their loved ones as well. But I just want us to also take a listen to what one of the officials in the city of Johannesburg had to say earlier on around how the hijacked buildings in the city are really affecting revenue collection, and that they have a strain on the city of Johannesburg. Let's take a listen.
We need fast and effective action soon, and hopefully we can solve some of these problems here with some of the bylaws as well. We need GMPD, we need the police as well to ensure that, you know, some of these areas are also condemned, and we restore Johannesburg to what it should look like for many other reasons, health reasons, hygienic reasons, and also just as the ambience of the city. Once you develop these buildings and restore these buildings to a state of good habitable conditions and you know, good infrastructure, I'm sure this should solve much of the problems of revenue. That is why I'm saying that we need partnership with good investors that can, you know, provide good development here in the city of Johannesburg. And by providing this type of development here in the city of Johannesburg, it will also bring income for the city of Johannesburg with employment and alleviating some of the you know, poverty and the rest of the other social issues in the city of Johannesburg.
Such a complex environment now being navigated by all involved, Pule. Just last night we had those tragic pictures of mothers still on the streets in the CBD around that building with little children, some still swaddled in blankets, refusing to go to shelters because they just didn't feel that they could trust those authorities to go with them. What have you heard from people today about whether or not they're feeling more open to going to these shelters?
There's still that issue of paranoia, Marcel. Some feel as though they will be thoroughly interrogated by officials from the Department of Home Affairs and, of course, immigration officials for not having proper documentation if they were to go to these shelters. But, of course, government has reassured everyone that they will help everyone, South Africans undocumented, documented, to come and get assistance. They've reassured that they will be helping them as well. And this was according to the Home Affairs Minister yesterday, Aaron Motsoaledi, reassuring them as well. But of course, some are saying they cannot vacate the scene or leave the scene because they still have their parcels which are inside the building. I spoke to one student as well who said that he bought his unit or room from someone who came as far as from KZN as well for about 7,000 Rand, and he says that his room was not affected, but of course he had an informal business he was running within the building as well, selling food to other tenants who were there, and now he believes that his equipment and of course his clothing and his academic documentation and his personal documentation is still there in that room and hasn't been burnt as well. And as a result, he does not want to leave the area, saying that he wants officials to help him to get his belongings so he can actually leave the building. So those are the challenges we've witnessed so far that those who have been residing there are raising, and wants clarity thereof as to what will be the step forward, or what will be the measurements, the procedures that they have to follow to get their personal belongings. That area had been cordoned off in the morning. We were told that officials from the emergency services unit and of course pathology services would be there, and that what we can tell you now is that when we left the area, there were of course law enforcement from the Johannesburg Metro Police Department and of course South African police services. But let's just take a listen to what this young man had to say earlier on when we spoke to him.
I just want my belongings, sir. I'm not gonna leave because I don't know if when they allowed them, like hooligans can go in and start stealing other people's stuff because they were doing it while other people were running out during the fire. So that's what I fear, that they might go and break in and fetch things that didn't get burned, and then lose everything.
So what are you gonna do now that this building has burned down? Are you gonna sell your room, or are you just gonna move out?
Who's gonna buy it? Who's gonna come and stay here? Nobody's allowed to stay here anymore. So it's a loss for me.
How was it inside? How many people were living inside? How many?
Whoa, my friend. They were a lot. It was a whole nation here, I would say. Because there were other rooms where, and especially our foreign brothers, Malawians and stuff, where they will stay 10, 9 in the room,
Pule, such a powerful conversation there. Just one person's account of what those living conditions are like. But you and I both know this is just an example of so many buildings like that, not just in our city, but in other parts of the country as well. And yet we're still sitting with a situation behind you of bodies that have not been claimed by loved ones because they fear for their current situation. And we can understand why. But we did have that appeal from the health minister last night, asking people to come forward, to trust them with their information, just so that we can find closure for these families. What's the atmosphere been like amongst those loved ones, family members, or next of kin that you've seen arriving there to finally put their hands up and say, we think that a loved one of ours could be here?
Well, I spoke to a family from Malawi, and what they told me is that they actually had been told that one of the bodies they were looking for had been burnt beyond recognition. I think the DNA linking processes has already started as well, and they say that's how they were assisted here. And they're now waiting for the body remains so they can begin with the burial processes. The biggest challenge here, of course, like I mentioned, is that some of them saying they cannot transport the body or the corpse to their countries of origin, which they say is quite costly, and therefore they'll have to settle to have the burial here in South Africa. The state, of course, has also said they'll assist if there is such a request as well, and if a body has been burnt beyond recognition. Others are resorting to other organizations like the Sabi Chishti Burial Service, which is, of course, an organization saying they will assist with any burial, which are, of course, in accordance to the Muslim rights as well, and they will do it at no cost, for free. And these, of course, are some of the organizations showing that it's all hands on deck. There are people who are trying to assist the affected victims and, of course, families. But we're also being told by one of the officials who was here, who could not come on record, but just to tip us or give us a sense that they're expecting more families to actually come here and identify their loved ones. So we will be seeing, an influx of families coming along during the day. Of course, there are still others who managed to escape that building, who in Johannesburg, who are still camping outside, who, like I said, want their belongings inside the building. So for now, while we're here, we're anticipating to see families come here in an attempt to try and identify their loved ones, and taking it from there as well as to what kind of assistance they will need going forward.